Hello my quilting friends, Leah Day here with a fun new project video for you today. I've been working on a cute little decorative block. I'm calling it Path Through the Snow, and it combines a lot of cool techniques, machine embroidery and piecing. So I can't wait to show you how to piece this fun project. Let's start first with machine embroidery and get some tips on stitching these snowflakes perfectly.
So the first step to embroidering your snowflakes is to hoop some stabilizer, and this is some tearaway sticky stabilizers, the kind that has the kind of shiny paper on the surface that you can score and tear away to reveal a sticky layer that will stick to your fabric and help it stay in place. So I'm just using a regular straight pen to score and then tear this paper away. Okay. And now I'm going to go on ahead and position this in the machine. Now the reason I went on ahead and positioned this in the machine is because the needle is giving me a dead center right here. And so I can line up my square of fabric right in the center of that hoop. It's super, super easy. And this is a 10-inch square of fabric. It's much bigger than we're going to need for this project, but I actually prefer to work with something bigger so I can trim it down really accurately. Another thing that we're going to have to think about is stabilizer. Is this enough stabilizer for a really dense design? And I don't think it is. So I'm also going to float a piece of, this is fusible cutaway stabilizer, and you float by tucking it down here underneath the hoop, between the hoop and the machine, and just tucking it down in there, making sure it's kind of centered up in the middle. So now we've got 3 layers ready to go. And just to kind of get them a little bit more stable, I'm going to run a basting stitch around this. And your machine might have this function. Check your manual. If you don't, it's no big deal. You don't have to have it, but it is one of those things that's really nice. Just gets everything kind of stuck together and holding fast. You can also use your basting stitch to check the placement of your fabric, just to make sure that that square is more or less in the center of your 10-inch square. Okay, now it's ready to go, and all you have to do is hit start, and your snowflake's going to start stitching out. I'm going to let it get started a bit, and I'm going to hit stop to clip my thread tail and get it going again. So the first step is to remove the basting stitches around our embroidery, if you added that to the design, and then we're going to remove the stabilizer from the wrong side. And this is just one of those kind of patient things that you have to kind of work on slowly. I've got some cutaway here, then I need to trim down with scissors. Close to the design, I aim for about 1/8 of an inch. But it's okay if it's a little wider if you can't manage to cut it really cleanly. It really doesn't matter because this is just going to go on the back of the block and it's going to be hidden in the sandwich of our quilt. So I'm just going to go around and trim this away, and then we'll be ripping away the tearaway stabilizer underneath next. So you can see I've trimmed all that away, and I really didn't worry about getting, this super, super perfect. I just wanted to get a rough cut out of that cutaway stabilizer to get it trimmed back. And then now I'm going to go around and tear away this second layer of stabilizer all around the design. You want to be gentle with this, but also, of course, firm enough to actually rip it away. And you can see I'm kind of pressing my fingers down over the embroidery design. Kind of keep those stitches protected, and then ripping with the other hand. Working my way around, and again, it's going to be just fine to stitch through this when we're quilting. So if you're not, if you don't get it exactly cut right to the stitches, like I'm going to probably just leave these little bits in and not worry about them. So I've removed as much stabilizer as I feel like is necessary, and now it's time to trim up this piece to go on our quilt block. So now I've placed my rotary ruler over the snowflake, and I'm just lining this up so the snowflake will be in the dead center of a 4.5-inch square. And I'm lining this up so the snowflake's nice and straight, but you don't have to. If you want to make it kind of wonky, that would be kind of cool too. But this looking pretty good. And just cut it out. So carefully cut two 4.5-inch squares with the snowflakes centered up in the middle, and you'll be ready to go to the next step. So the next step is to arrange this with our block, and I've already pieced two 4-patch blocks. So we're going to take a 4-patch and layer it over a snowflake block, line these up, and stitch through them. So let's go to the machine and see how this works. So I'm just going to get started making sure that the edge of my fabric is nicely aligned with the edge of my presser foot, I should say, is nicely aligned with the edge of my fabric. And I also want to double check as I get close to the seam allowance that's nicely pressed open. It's not going to flip up on me. And I have dialed my stitch length down to 1.5 millimeters, so it's producing a really nice tight stitch. And I can go on ahead and grab the second set, the snowflake and 4-patch. Place those right sides together and align, just take a minute to align this edge so they're right stacked on top of each other. Then slide them under the foot and align that edge with the edge of your patchwork foot. And just a warning, your snowflake with the stabilizer ripped off, it might be a little wobbly feeling. If you want to give it a little press with some steam, that might encourage it to lay flatter, be a little easier to piece. So the next step is to finger press the seam allowance open nicely and then give it a good press with your iron. You want to really flatten that out, and you can also press the embroidery a bit from the back, and that will help that snowflake to flatten out as well. If you're going to press it from the front, make sure to use a pressing cloth of some sort just to protect your stitching. And do the same thing with the other side. Okay, so return the blocks, the pieces to the layout, and we're going to piece these two together, matching the seam right here in the middle. And again, we're going to finger press that seam allowance open and then give it a good press with a hot, dry iron. So that's the center section of our block pieced. And the next step is to attach the borders. So you're first going to sew the two side borders into place. Just layer those on top and stitch with a nice 1/4-inch seam allowance. And then while you're at it, also go on ahead and stitch your top and bottom borders. You're just going to stitch the corner piece to the long strip on both sides. And then once you press that seam allowance open, stitch them to the center of your block and your block will be complete.
And here's what it looks like when you finish your Path in the Snow block. If you'd like to make a beautiful block like this, you'll definitely need the instructions and of course the sensational Snowflakes design collection for machine embroidery. You can click right here to find those designs at leahday.com. I really hope that you enjoyed learning how to piece with embroidery with me today and that you'll join me for the next video in this little mini series as we learn how to machine quilt a cool design around these embroidered snowflakes. So definitely join me for that later this week. Until next time, let's go quilt.